legacy of the red, white, and blue.
It's time for Veterans Issues, the show that brings you information about veterans, military, and their family. Now here's your host, Ken Rollins.
Welcome to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here, and we are brought to you by the Red, White, and Blue. Today, this is part two of a show we had here a while back, and he didn't come back and finish it up. He's a World War II veteran. He's an ex-prisoner of war. His name is Truman Waters, and we're going to get the rest of the story when we come right back. Get you a pen. Be right back. Welcome into Veterans Issues. I told you to get you a pen. You can't get a pen like this, but I doubt if there's very many of them left like it. Looks like a bullet, but it's just a pen. So we're happy to have back. I asked him would he return. His name is Truman Waters. He's a World War II veteran. He's an ex-prisoner of war. And when he was on here before, we got up to the part where he became a prisoner of war, and then we had to end the show. So he said he'd come back. He's a man of his word, and he's welcome back to the show, Truman.
Thank you, sir.
I got that Truman right today, didn't I?
Oh, yeah,
It
you
was
sure did.
always George Truman, so I've been George.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to go with Truman today.
Well, I can go a little bit further with
Can
you.
you?
On my book, it's George William Truman Waters.
I got the book.
I got the full name in there.
Yeah, and
All
I
right.
have read that book, and I've got it. You even autographed it for me. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
There
I
you
sure
go.
do.
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
autograph
You
it.
got to read the book. The book has the answers to all of it. But I guess, let me ask you, after you wrote that book, did you say, I wish I'd have put this in there, I wish I'd have put that in
Oh, it happens every day.
Wish
There's
I-
something come up.
there? Well, you may have to write part two.
Well, if I had the energy, I would. I don't know if I don't have the get up and go that I had
Yeah.
20 or 30 years ago. for
Well,
some
if you
reason.
don't tell it, ain't nobody going to tell it for you, because they don't know it.
Well, that's
And like
true.
you got a lot of family that I know, and a lot of them probably don't know everything is needed. Some of them might not want them to know.
Well,
No, I just
well, there are times when it's all right,
yeah.
and then the other times it's not too good.
Yeah. Well, you're from. Let's for the folks that might not have saw the other shows. You're from down in. You're south of here. What was it? Roanoke.
No, it's Heflin is my address, but I am in just the northern part of Randolph County,
Randolph County.
which
Okay.
is just about a mile from Micaville, which
Yeah.
is just over the line in Cleburne.
Yeah, them people up in Birmingham, they're looking around their maps now trying to find all that stuff. But
Oh, yeah.
but I know where Micaville is. And anyhow, you're from down in the Heflin area and Lineville, and you was drafted, as I remember.
Yeah,
And
that's
you was
correct.
You was in the Air Corps, Army Air Corps.
Yeah, I was drafted in the Army, and then after you get in the service, if you're lucky, you can designate to some extent
Yeah.
where you want to go. So I wanted to be in the Army Air Force.
Really?
And-
Well, there was a point that you went to Africa, and you was in the that ball that's up under the front of the. What kind of plane was that?
That's B-17.
B-17.
that's
It's got a
the-
plexiglass.
Well, it's part plexiglass and part steel. It's got one big window that you can look out, and you can look straight ahead. That's where you're looking all the time because it's
Yeah.
closed in, and you can guide
You
that
had a
thing
machine
around.
gun. You had a machine
Yeah, I got
gun.
it. Triggers on top.
Yeah.
You just push a button. It's all electric.
Now, you told
And,
me you was too tall that you had to lean to the side
Yeah, I
to
couldn't
do
get
the left, and
I could handle the spade grips with either hand, but I couldn't do it with both hands at the same time.
Yeah.
I'd have to move my knees around to get to it. And the way the spade grip was, if you did that, you'd move the whole turret back and forth. Do that, it'd go down. And you'd go all the way around and straight down, and you could just see everything
So the
underneath
pilot-
the plane.
the pilot's just flying at the target, or to where the target
Yeah,
might
he
be.
can see ahead and to each side, but he can't see beneath the plane. He can see above. But I was right the opposite. I could see what was going on underneath, but I couldn't see above.
But you was also exposed out front there. wasn't you?
Oh yeah, and we get plane hit sometime. And pilot called back, says, "Are you all right?" And one time we got on the ground, it had hit the battery, a bunch of batteries we had in there, and hit them.
Inside the turret?
Inside the plane
Oh,
by
okay.
the turret.
But it
But
didn't
he
hit
thought
you.
it hit that turret. He said from where I was, I thought you was hit solid. And that's why he called out like he did.
All right. Well, your plane was shot down, right?
Right. And
Now, did the what was it? Aircraft hit it, shoot it down, or was it from artillery?
well, it was some artillery fire that got us first, and it was big stuff. This is my 25th mission, and that was the biggest burst that I'd ever seen. Ordinarily, the bursts come up through the clouds, by the way. They had radar. And it was accurate. And ordinarily, a blast would be about like say a gallon bucket. This was like a wash tub when it exploded out there. It was big stuff just coming up at us.
Not
and
just
some-
flak. It was,
Well, it was flak. It was all
but it was
flak.
a bomb burst, though.
Yeah, it was a big bomb that
Yeah.
burst rather than say an 88. This was probably a 155.
Now it
bursted.
hit the plane where? In the belly?
It hit it several places. Well, that wasn't anything new. We come in with planes hit maybe 100 holes in it, but it never would hit a vital spot like this was. This hit the engine, number 3 engine,
Okay.
and it knocked the engine out, but the co-pilot couldn't fill the prop. Well, with that windmilling prop, we couldn't stay in the formation. And that's when the fighters came in and just tore the plane up. And that's when, that's
All right. When you say they
down.
came in and tore the plane up, they were shooting
There's
at
two-
all different places on the plane.
yeah, there's 2 fighters coming in. Of course, I didn't know there's but one, and the people on top didn't know. They thought it's just one. Theirs was coming in from 2 o'clock high. Ours coming in from 6 o'clock, just above level. It's too high for me to hit him. I couldn't. But the tail gunner was the one that's shooting at him. But the last words he said was, "Lord of mercy, get that fighter.
The Lord of mercy, what?
Get that fighter." And that's when the tail was shot off the plane. And well, it started after I got on the ground and went to the where the fighters was coming up from. I met the commanding officer there, and he saw what went on. And he said, "I've never seen a plane go down like that before." Said that thing went down end over end.
Now you mean?
It caught a fire.
Yeah, your plane though. The guy was shot. The tail gunner was shot. At some point, it shot the pilot. Hit the pilot. Then you
Well-
had to bail out.
I don't know just how the pilot got killed, because the co-pilot told me after we got on the ground, said he was in line to jump, but he didn't make it. So
Okay, so I want to make sure people understand you didn't land the plane to get on the ground. You had to bail out.
This is all going on at around somewhere around 25,000 feet in the air, and as we was losing altitude, I figure I was about 15,000 feet when I jumped. Clouds right at that time was about 8,000 feet above the ground, so I had quite a ways to fall before I got to the clouds, and I thought I was going up instead of down.
We got to go up to a break, so when we come back, we're going to pick up there. We're going to talk about the parachute.
Okay.
When we come back. Stay where you are, folks. We got more with Truman Waters when we come back here. Stay right there. Welcome back to Veterans Issues. Ken Rollins here, and we're talking with Truman Waters today, World War II veteran, ex-prisoner of war, and we were talking about when the plane was shot and everybody bailed out. It could bail out, the one that wasn't killed. Now, when you found out you had to go, let's back up a little bit. You were too big that you could not have a parachute for your back.
Well, nobody
Right,
could
no
in ball
could, yeah.
turret.
Not
I
in
mean,
the
it's
turret,
just one of those things. It's too small.
Yes, so
But,
you had a parachute. How did you get a parachute?
Well, I went to the junkyard after the first mission, and I saw that things could go wrong, bad wrong. So I had no way of getting out of that plane on that first mission. Well, I could get out of the plane, but what good would it do? No chute. So I went to the to the supply room and talked to the guy that was in charge of the supplies. I says, "I need a chute that I can put by that turret and I need something to fasten it to that's on me, so that I can hook that thing on after I get out of this ball, tear it up into the plane, and go out and jump to get that chute open. Have you got anything like that? No. Well, I just kept bugging him. I said, I've got to find something, some way. I didn't want it to wash out. I could have refused to fly, but I didn't want to do that. So I kept bugging him. I said, there's some way, surely. He said, we got a junk pile outside that we brought up here from Africa, and said, it's just surplus stuff. It's been laying out there for weeks, and said, you go out there and see what you can find. So I went out there and I found this harness. That's what I want. I can put that harness on. It's got fasteners on it around my legs and around my waist, and it's got 2 rings here. Now, I need a chute that'll fit in this thing. And I kept going through all this junk. You can imagine, just like going to a junkyard or out to a dump. Same thing, going to a dump looking for something. And I found that chute. Everything was wet, wringing wet. It'd been out in the weather. And I pulled that chute out, and I got that harness and put it on, adjusted it, and I got that chute, and that thing fit. It had snaps. The chute had snaps that fit into those 2 rings.
How about that?
And but it's small. It was smaller than any chute you would commonly see. And but the harness, it wasn't just a harness. It had a big pack of stuff built into it. So I tore all that out, and it was, I took it to be a kit for the jungle, a jungle pack. It's what it seemed to be. It had stuff in there, you know, that you'd think people would need if they landed in the jungle. And when you called me yesterday about questioning the chute deal and what it was used for, I got to thinking about what I'd never even considered before. Before, I hadn't even considered what it was used for. But after you called me and discussed it, said, what about this chute? It's not a secondary chute that they use, as far as I could tell, in relation to the main chute. It was just a chute, and now I believe that they had been mates before, the harness and the chute. But I think that was a pack that they probably threw out of planes for people that's on the ground to have if they got shot down in the jungle.
Well, you know, me and Jeff here on the floor, we sitting here listening to that, and I ain't talking to him, but I bet you he's thinking the same thing I am. You went to the junkyard
Absolutely.
to get something to save your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
How about that?
And then I had a bag that I put that in. I didn't take it to anybody to repack it or anything. I just, the flying missions, pretty quick, pretty fast, you know. First mission, 29th of December, 43, and then the rest of them, I had 25 in by February.
You talk about like you went to buy a wheel, get a wheel for your wheelbarrow. Me and Jeff looking at it a different way. That's something to save your life. We're going to get running out of time before we get there. I want to get you. You jumped and you landed in Germany.
Yeah.
And you landed in a guy's yard or something, a driveway.
Well, it's close to his yard, about 100 yards from it.
He got him a prisoner of war to start with, didn't he?
Absolutely, that's what he got.
All right, but here's what we didn't get to cover the last time. You said they was in a encampment that period of time, but then y'all were on the move a lot as prisoners.
Well,
tell me about that.
As the Russians would push, they moved us to begin with up to East Prussia. Well, the Russians began to push. They were wintertime fighters,
Right.
And we had to move from there. And they moved us. I mentioned an old ship that we would move down the coast and to.
Packed in there like sardines.
Yeah, absolutely. Pomerania. Well, the Russians pushing further. Well, by 45, February the 6th of 45, the Russians was coming in to that camp. So I was unfortunate enough to be in the bunch, it couldn't be taken out by a train. So one morning they just got us up and started us marching away from the front. It was they were coming in.
The Russians were.
The Russians were, and they gave each one of us a Red Cross parcel, just kind of threw it at us as we was walking by, and we started down this boiler surface road with ice. I mean, people slipping and sliding and losing their parcel and having to move on without it and all that kind of stuff.
Did they mistreat you?
I was treated in every way imaginable, from
Really?
very good to the worst you can imagine. There's all kind of people, just like prisoners. I mean, guards are just like everybody else. They're all kind.
Yeah.
And but the SS troop and the Gestapo was the two to be dreaded. If you got tangled up with them, you had nothing but bad luck from beginning to end. And a few times I've run into both, to each one of them. And but even the guards sometimes say, when we were out on the roads, going away from the fronts, they'd say, now we've got to be on our best behavior today because we're going through where they're a bunch of SS troops. They're as afraid of the SS troops as we were.
You mean the Germans?
Germans were. Or they're German.
Where at some point you were emancipated, y'all were released. How did that come about? Did you,
We were close to Lubeck, and it was late it was in May. Just war was over. Hitler had already committed suicide, and the guards was ready to give up. In fact, one of the guards told me, he said, Hitler, before he died, gave the order to kill all prisoners of war, but said he was far enough gone, he had no authority anymore. And one guy was in charge of all of us, and he and the captain of the guards stood up on the back of a truck, and they said, the guards want to give up, but we can't find anybody to give up to. And we could hear rat-a-tat-tat in the distance.
Yeah.
There's still fighting going on. And
well, we'd run it down low. I want to make sure. Then
Yeah.
after you came out there, you came back home, straight back home from there?
no, I was with the English several
Oh, you
weeks.
still stayed in, yeah.
Yeah, staying out in camp. Of course, it was nice, but we weren't getting anywhere because they're still fighting in the Pacific.
Yeah.
And they're winding down over here, and they don't have too much time to take care of prisoners. And it took a while to get us back to the Americans. It was the English.
Well, hold that right there. We're going to go over a little overtime here and do something, because I can't let you go on there. We're going to go to a break, come back. Instead of news that you can use, I'm going to talk some more with Truman Waters. We got go to a break right now. Be right back. Welcome back in. Instead of going right into the news that you can use, I want to carry on over and finish up with Truman Waters. But before I do, I want to tell all you veterans out there that October the 5th is the Health Fair Day. October the 5th, the Health Fair Day down at the Oxford VA Clinic. And that's for the veterans, not your families. So it's time for flu shots. It's time for pneumonia shots. Now, my daughter just went through the worst pneumonia and all that kind of stuff, and she had the flu shot, but she didn't have the pneumonia shot. I did have the pneumonia shot, and I survived so far. So I'm going to suggest that you talk to them about getting, if you're eligible to get you a pneumonia shot while you're there. And there's a lot of things that they're going to do, the blood pressure and stuff like that. So if you're diabetic, the sugar and all that. So the health fair on October the 5th down at the Oxford Clinic. So remember that date. Now we're still back here with George Truman Waters, and World War II, ex-prisoner of war. When you emancipated, when you stayed in England for a while.
No, I never was in England.
Well, where was that?
I was in Camp Lucky Strike when I got back with the Americans.
Yeah, I don't know where that's at.
That's in France.
France,
and
okay.
from there, we took a ship back
Camp
to
Lucky Strike.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Lord, I ain't even get into that. We won't get enough time.
Okay.
But anyhow, you stayed there for a while before you came
yeah.
home. What was the family? The family knew that you was a prisoner of war?
Oh yeah, they'd found that out. They didn't know for about 3 months.
Did
they
you
got
ever
a letter
hear
from
Did
me.
you ever hear from them?
Oh
through the
yeah, I
Red
get
Cross?
a letter every now and then, but then nothing as impersonal as a letter when you're a prisoner of war.
Yeah.
it's been censored by both sides, and everybody around you wants to read it, and they're reading it over your shoulder.
Wow.
And my wife had one that said Dimples in there, and my friend.
Uh-oh.
Guy looked over, Dimples.
Well, you know
Dimple.
the next time I see you, I'm gonna call you Dimple. You got some family
I got
here.
back to Anniston.
Yeah.
And
What's
it
your
was late
son's
at
name?
night.
Your son's name, by the way.
My son that lives here, Stephen, he's the
And you
youngest.
got another one?
Yeah, well, I got one in Birmingham. His David, that's the oldest one. Then I
David
got
and
one
Stephen's
in Texas.
here. Stephen's married to Nancy.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
right. Here, in,
All right. Anybody else in your local family here?
yeah, that's about the closest kin. Of course, my wife
Nope.
was raised down at Montford.
your
She
wife.
got Boku kin.
Okay, she got a name?
Mavis is her name.
Okay, maybe. That's
Yeah.
what I said, because Mavis going to watch this. That's what I said.
Well, I don't know if she will.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll make sure she does. Make sure you got everything right.
Yeah.
But
She's
she-
heard all this before, but anyway,
Yeah, I bet.
when we got to Anniston, you was talking about getting back home. It's late night, and I thought, I'm not going to spend the night here at Anniston in a hotel. My wife's down there at Munford. So I hailed a cab. He carried me down there for practically nothing. I think I don't remember what it was, but it's always after midnight time I got down there. And of course, the whole family, they were awake in no time. So we had a party, you know.
Yeah. So that's the first thing he saw you since you'd been gone.
Oh yeah,
about
I'd been gone just about 2 years.
So they didn't have a big parade for you or nothing like that?
Well, that was a parade enough.
That's great. I'm going to go some things I got to talk about here, but I really appreciate you being on the
you
show.
thank
I really do, and we covered a good bit of it, but I'm sure we left a lot of it back, and we may
Well,
come
it's
back
hard.
here after the winter and do it again.
Whenever
Yes.
you say.
But I appreciate you, and I appreciate your service. For you folks out there that's, I talked to you about the flu shots and whatever. I did talk to the clinic this morning, and they do. They said for me to remind you, if you have the flu or you have some kind of a cough and whatever, don't expect to get the shot. So, if you're thinking about going down on October the 5th and you're huffing and coughing and cracking like I'm doing, then you'll have to wait for a period of time. But that's a great time to put on your clock to do that. So I want to this week I want to salute to go out to all the law enforcement. They're catching it from all sides, and I want you to know we appreciate you here. And we'll see you next week here on Veterans Issues. For you, veterans law enforcement,